back to another episode of Let's Talk Boxing. I'm Leti.
I'm LB.
And let's get into some of the fights this weekend. So the first fight, we have Vasiliy Lomachenko,
a.k.a. The Matrix.
The Matrix out of Ukraine versus Jamaine Ortiz out of Massachusetts.
A.k.a. The Technician.
Okay, so what's up? What you see in this fight? What you think? The return of Loma?
Yeah. So like we said in our previous video, I was excited for Loma to make his return. And I thought that this was going to be pretty much how the fight kind of turned out. I knew that Jamaine Ortiz was a live dog, and I think he impressed a lot of people with his performance. You know.
Yeah.
So I'll let you kind of get into it first, but what did you think?
I thought it was a competitive fight, which we knew that, it was going to be a lot like that. I don't know if a lot of people knew about Ortiz, but, us kind of watching some of his fights, kind of recent, it was like, okay, Loma's going to have, competition. Is, Ortiz is not known just to look past or, that he'll be able to walk through. Loma did win, unanimous decision, 12 rounds, he won. He did start off a little slow, and he usually does because, he says he likes to, look at his competition, download the data, just kind of see how, his opponent is, which, okay, I think, is smart to do, but he did start off slow. And Ortiz was dominating those first few rounds. Would you say, would we go as much as saying dominating for you?
Yeah, I would say, he definitely did start slow. And I definitely had, Jamaine winning those first 3 rounds. It kind of looked, just like, how Loma started off in the Tio fight slow. It looked a lot similar.
Then like how they were talking about he wasn't throwing so many, throwing much, which it was kind of like that also with this fight. He wasn't throwing as much. So kind of similar to that. Yeah.
It was like that. Like I said, the fight kind of looked a lot similar. Lomachenko, I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of this before, because I already started to see people saying like, oh, Loma, he wasn't the same. And I don't feel that way. I feel like Loma looked exactly, how he was when he fought Tio. I think it was more about, the performance of Jamaine Ortiz. He was in there just like how he was in there with Tio. He was in there with a young, hungry, athletic fighter, someone who could, when Loma does those angles, someone who can move with him and who can pivot with him. And, that's why Jamaine was having a lot of success. And, so the fight kind of looked, kind of similar to that of Tio.
Yeah. And, he did. Okay. So they're saying because Loma had like a cut on the right eye, I think it was, underneath the right eye. And, they were talking about, was it a punch or was it actually his tape? And because Loma's corner was like, oh, it was a tape or whatnot. The type of tape he had. But yeah, like you said, Ortiz was moving around that ring. And like I had said before, he kind of slows down towards the end of the rounds. He slowed down a little bit, but man, he was still like, moving around and just, he seemed like he still had energy. And, I'm sure he did train to go 12 rounds with Loma and use a lot of movement because he knew he had to do that with Loma.
Yeah, and I'm going to just say like this. Like in our previous prediction, I said that, he's familiar with Loma. And you could see that throughout the fight that, when usually when Loma, he does his angles and he pivots, the other, the opponent is left in a quicksand, if you want to say, doesn't move. But you can see, especially early on in the fight, he was moving with Loma, which kind of gave Loma a lot of problems. Another thing, that, didn't really get talked about enough is the left hook of Ortiz. They always say like, oh, the southpaw killer is a straight, is the right hand because, just of, how the orthodox and southpaw line up. But, he was, he definitely, you could tell he did his homework because, he was preventing Loma from getting to that side because he loves to pivot to the outside and he was throwing that left hook that was very successful against Loma. And so, so as the fight kind of went on, Loma became Loma. Loma, you could tell that, he's got that championship pedigree and, he's been here before because especially in the championship rounds, he was able to win decisively. And, and for Jamaine, Jamaine has never been 12 rounds before. This was his first time. So, you could really tell, that, this was his first time, just by the way that, you know, Loma just kept on the pressure, and that's when he started to really have a lot of success.
And you could definitely tell that Loma was in there as a veteran, you know, because even though he started a little slow, like you said, he picked it up for me like a little bit before mid fight. He started to pick it up, you know. Ortiz did have some really good short punches on the inside. Those were really being effective. And he was, like you said, he was actually switching from orthodox to southpaw, and he has said that, you know, Loma, when they sparred, he said he never showed that sign that he could do that, you know.
And kind of talk about that, like you know, so before he turned southpaw, you know, Loma started to come on strong. I think it was like around 5, you know, he was starting to come on strong. And then when he did change southpaw, he actually had a lot of success. And I was wondering why, you know, Ortiz didn't go back to him switching to southpaw, because he was having, you know, so much success. And he was even moving better. He looked more fluid when he was fighting southpaw. You could tell he was kind of, you know, more comfortable, and he was kind of, you know, he's kind of posturing a little bit. But yeah.
And I mean, I gotta say though, Loma, he's definitely a small 135 pounder, because you could tell that Ortiz was way bigger than him. And you know, at one point, you know, like we said, Loma became Loma, and he was walking Ortiz down. He was hurting Ortiz. He like backed him up almost, you know, I wouldn't say buckle his knees, but he was kind of like, you know, really hurt.
And kind of go off of that, I mean, Loma did land some really, really good shots. You know, but Loma, you know, he just definitely, you know, he gave a lot of rounds early, you know, just like how he did with Teo. And, you know, it kind of makes me wonder, like, you know, is he giving these rounds away, you know, because he's trying to, you know, let some steam off of the, you know, the younger, athletic, you know, bigger fighters. You know, maybe that might be the reason, you know, why he's starting late. But yeah, and to kind of talk about, you know, him starting late, you know, one of the scorecards came out as 117-11. That was trash. That fight was, you know, a close fight. It was a really close fight. And, you know, I did, you know, with the championship rounds, you know, I did have Loma, you know, made by a round or two. But 117-111, I don't necessarily agree with that. And kind of like going into the championship rounds, I was telling her, I was like, yeah, Ortiz needs to definitely, you know, get some of these rounds, you know, because, you know, the championship rounds, you know, that makes a big difference, especially in the judges' eyes.
Yep. And for me, it was like, if Loma can, you know, lock these last 3 rounds in, like, he's going to win. And he did. He locked those last 3 rounds out clearly. He got those rounds. But I was really happy to see him back in the ring, you know. It's been a minute. I wanted to see how he was going to look. I don't think he looked bad. Like you said, some of the moves he just couldn't with this, you know, the footwork that I like to see. A lot of it kind of wasn't there because of the way Ortiz was fighting, you know, and kind of, not for him, like, you know, it was making it a little bit harder for him to move.
You know, he was in there with a young, hungry fighter. I mean, you know, Loma's, you know, up in his 30s. This guy, Jamaine, is young, hungry. You know, he wants those titles, you know, and he was able to move. You know, he definitely had the athleticism advantage. And those angles that you said you looked for, you know, that you like to see with Loma, he wasn't able to do that early in the fight, but towards the end of the fight, once you know Jamaine started to slow down, you know, you started to see more of those angles. You started to see him turn Jamaine and land those, you know, those clean left straight lefts. And another punch that was really going for Loma, outside of the lead left hand, was, you know, after he was throwing that lead left hand, he was coming back with a power jab, and that was really swelled up Jamaine's eye.
It did. At one point, we were like, "Shit, is that going to shut?" Because that eye was getting low, you know, closed up. It had to really press on and try to open it up or whatever. But that's what I like to see. I like to see that it's a good fight. It's not just, you know, anyone. He came back from, you know, kind of a cool minute of not fighting, and to come into this, it wasn't no walk in the park.
No, it wasn't.
But he got the win, so that was cool. And you know, do you have anything else to say before we get into?
I mean, I just want to reiterate the fact that, you know, this is Loma. He did not look like he slowed down. He looked like the same Loma to me. And you know, his previous 2 fights, you know, he had the fight with Richard Comey, and before that he had it with Nakatani. I think if it would have been Nakatani or Comey in the ring again tonight, he would have dominated him, or, you know, stopped him, you know, the same way that he did earlier. So, you know, like, I just want to get ahead of that, you know, because people are saying, you know, but I think people are saying that, you know, that Loma didn't look the same. And I think it's more, I think we need to give more credit, for Jamaine Ortiz in coming ready. I mean, we looked at Jamaine Ortiz in his previous fights, and, this definitely looked like the better version of him. He was definitely in more condition, even though he did slow down. I mean, we've never seen rounds 11 and 12 before, right. And let alone, he being in there with someone like Lomachenko, right. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was more about that. More about Jamaine's performance. And I thought Loma looked like the same Loma to me.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't slow down. He didn't look gassed to me. And again, if they're saying that, you got to think, like, they've sparred before, so Loma knows a little bit about Ortiz, too. So maybe he fought a different way because he knew the way his opponent fought, So you're not just going to go there and be, every fight, you're probably going to fight a little bit different, but...
Yeah, but they gave us a great fight. They had us on the edge of our seat.
I was happy.
It was back and forth, and look, it was a tight fight. Some people thought, some people saw a draw. Some people, it was just a competitive fight, and that's what you like to see as a boxing fan.
Yeah, it is. But after that, what's next for Loma? Which we all might know already, but... Yeah. So I think just like, everyone else probably feels the same as us, but, the only fight that needs to be made now is Devin Haney. We know their history of before is Devin Haney was the mandatory, and Loma, instead of, fighting the mandatory challenger, and Devin Haney opted for the franchise title, which allowed him to go ahead and unify with Teofimo Lopez and not have to fight Devin Haney. So, a lot of people, when that happened, a lot of people were asking for that fight. And so I think now that it's only right that fight actually be made. Now they're both on the same side of the street with Top Rank. And I feel like it's just time to be made. I think so too. And, if you watch our Devin Haney fight, I said the same thing. The only fight that would make sense if Devin stays at 135 is just to go ahead and get that Loma, check that out, the list, and just get it done. Devin was there at the fight. They did, bring him up to talk after the fight was over. And it was funny how they asked Loma, and Loma was like, "Oh wait, he's in this division. He looked like a heavyweight because he was looking a little bigger or whatever." But yeah, like the same thing. I think that fight is the next one that needs to happen. And there's not much else to say about that, but it's just. And it seemed like they're both willing to.
The dream said as long as it pretty much this is what I'm gonna give you my translation. He said if it makes sense, we'll get the fight. So pretty much if the money right, Devin Haney said the fight is gonna happen, and we already know Devin Haney. He took the short end of the stick. To go over there, to get the undisputed titles, and so he's been, he actually signed over the Top Rank with anticipation of getting this fight with Loma. So it's just time to be made.
And I don't see why it wouldn't be made. Like I said, the only thing is if he did decide to go to 140, but I think he's gonna have one more fight in him to 135. I don't see it not happening because, like you said, he says as long as it makes sense. Loma's like whatever. Pretty much whatever you put in the contract is what I'm going to sign. And Devin said that again, like, what? If that's what you're saying, because I took a shitty ass deal to, get undisputed and go out there and get it done. If you're down for them, then it's going to get done. So let's see what's going to happen.
So, and
just wait for the day of the announcement.
Yeah, we just got to wait for that. And also, I'm excited to see, who Jamaine actually gets matched up with, too. I know he probably got some fans, and, he definitely got some credit for his performance against Loma, because like we said, a lot of people probably didn't anticipate this fight being as close as it was.
We did. I did.
So I'm excited to see, how they end up moving with him, or if he, decides to move to 140 or whatnot. But yeah, they gave us a great performance, a great fight. Loma showed the experience he had, and that was what it took to to go actually defeat Jamaine Ortiz, the young, hungry fighter. So. We're just excited to see, what's next for Loma, and hopefully we get that fight with him and Devin Haney. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's all we got. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Or talk your shit. And we out.